I never thought I'd be the type of woman to cheat on her husband. Never. But if life has taught me anything, it's that certainty is a dangerous thing. Because the moment you believe you're immune to temptation, it finds you. And it found me, in the most unexpected place, at the most unexpected time. I still remember the way my heart pounded as I sat on the plane, heading to a city I had never been to before. It was a business trip, nothing more. A few days away from home, attending conferences, networking, and most importantly, proving to my boss that I was ready for the next step in my career. John kissed me goodbye at the airport, his touch warm but familiar, his love unwavering. We'd only been married for a year, but something had shifted. Our love, once full of passion, had settled into something quieter, something predictable. I loved John, I did, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was slowly fading into the routine of our marriage. As soon as I arrived at the hotel, Lizzie, my colleague, greeted me with a wide grin. "Jenny, you ready to have some fun?" Lizzie was the life of every party. A woman who believed that work trips should be just as much about pleasure as they were about business. "We have a networking event tonight. It's at a rooftop bar. You're coming," she declared, leaving no room for protest. I hesitated. "I don't know. I'm kind of tired from the flight." Lizzie rolled her eyes. "Jenny, come on. You work hard. You deserve a night to unwind. Just a few drinks." Maybe she was right. Maybe I did need to unwind. I had been so consumed with trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect employee, the perfect everything that I had forgotten how to just be me. That night, I slipped into a black dress. Not too revealing, but just enough to remind myself that I was still young, still attractive, still alive. The rooftop bar was buzzing with energy, the city lights stretching far into the horizon. I let Lizzie drag me into the crowd, where introductions were made, hands were shaken, and business cards exchanged. And then I saw him. Joe. He stood at the far end of the bar, tall, confident, his presence magnetic. He wasn't the most handsome man in the room, but there was something about him that drew me in. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, the ease in his posture, the way his eyes scanned the room like he had already figured everyone out. I tried to ignore him, but our eyes met, and in that instant, something shifted inside me. It was dangerous. It was thrilling. I turned back to Lizzie, forcing a laugh at whatever joke she had just cracked, but I could feel Joe's gaze lingering. A few minutes later, he was beside me. "You don't look like you're enjoying yourself," he said, his voice deep, smooth, almost hypnotic. I smiled, trying to play it cool. "I'm just taking it all in." He studied me for a moment before extending his hand. "Joe." "Jenny," I said, shaking his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. "Married?" he asked, his eyes flickering to the ring on my finger. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, happily." I should have been offended by the question. I should have walked away right then and there. But instead, I found myself laughing softly. "That's a dangerous question." He smirked. "Only if you're afraid of the answer." I swallowed hard. Who was this man? And why did he make me feel like I had just stepped into something I wasn't ready for? The night carried on, and I told myself I was just having a harmless conversation. Just talking. Just enjoying a moment of attention that felt different. But deep down, I knew I was playing with fire. As the night wore on, Joe leaned in, his voice low, his lips just inches from my ear. "You don't have to answer this, Jenny, but tell me, when was the last time someone made you feel truly desired?" His words sent a shiver down my spine. My breath hitched, my fingers tightening around the glass in my hand. I couldn't answer, because if I did, I would have to admit the truth. It had been too long, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Alive. I should have walked away. I should have excused myself, left the bar, and gone back to my hotel room like the faithful wife I was supposed to be. But I didn't. Instead, I let the night pull me in deeper. Joe and I continued talking, and with every passing moment, my resolve weakened. The wine in my glass disappeared quicker than I intended, and the warmth in my chest wasn't just from the alcohol. It was from him. The way he looked at me, like I was the most intriguing woman in the room, made me feel something I hadn't in years. Lizzie had long since moved on to another group of people, leaving me alone with Joe. And I let it happen. I wanted it to happen. Let's get some air, Joe said, gesturing toward the terrace. I hesitated but followed him, stepping out onto the rooftop where the city stretched before us, twinkling and alive. The cool breeze brushed against my skin, but the heat between us was undeniable. You're thinking too much, he said, watching me closely. I let out a shaky laugh. Can you blame me? No, he admitted. But sometimes you have to stop thinking and just feel. He reached out, his fingers lightly grazing my arm, sending electricity through my body. I should have pulled away. I should have ended it right there. But I didn't. I looked up at him, searching for a reason to leave, an excuse to walk away. But all I found was the overwhelming urge to do something reckless, something forbidden. And then, before I knew it, his lips were on mine. And I didn't stop him. The first thing I felt was warmth. A foreign, unfamiliar heat pressed against my skin. And as I slowly opened my eyes, reality came crashing down like a tidal wave. The hotel room was bathed in the soft glow of the morning sun. And beside me, still asleep, was Joe. My heart pounded violently as I sat up, clutching the sheet against my chest, as if it could somehow erase the guilt seeping into my bones. My body ached, a reminder of the night before, a reminder of the sin I had committed, the vows I had shattered. What had I done? John's face flashed in my mind, his warm, trusting eyes, the way he kissed me goodbye at the airport. He had no idea. He had no clue that his wife, the woman he loved, had betrayed him in the worst way possible. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of there, before I made things even worse. I carefully slid out of bed, every movement slow, every breath measured. But as I reached for my dress, I heard his voice. Running away? I froze, my fingers tightening around the fabric as I turned to face him. Joe was awake, watching me with that same easy confidence, as if last night had been nothing more than a casual encounter. As if I wasn't on the verge of falling apart. I shouldn't be here, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But you are, he said, sitting up, the sheets slipping from his torso. And last night, it wasn't a mistake, Jenny. His words sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to argue, to tell him that he was wrong, that it was the biggest mistake of my life. But a part of me, the same reckless part that had let this happen in the first place, knew that a piece of me believed him. I have to go, I said, slipping into my dress, my fingers trembling as I zipped it up. I grabbed my purse, my heels, and without another word, I walked out of the room, out of the hotel, out of the biggest mistake I had ever made. But no matter how far I walked, no matter how much distance I put between us, I knew one thing for certain. I could never undo what had been done. I walked into our home with a sinking heart, the weight of my betrayal pressing on my chest like a stone. Everything looked the same. The framed wedding pictures on the wall, the scent of John's cologne lingering in the air, the warmth that had always made this house feel like home. But I was different. I was ruined. John met me at the door with a soft smile, pulling me into his arms before I could even set my bag down. Hey baby, how was the trip? He asked, kissing my forehead. I wanted to crumble right then and there. It was. The words caught in my throat. Lying felt suffocating. But the truth would destroy everything. Exhausting, I finally said. I just want to shower and rest. Of course, John said, taking my bag. I made dinner. Thought we could eat together. I nodded numbly, but I couldn't eat. I couldn't look at him without feeling like the worst person alive. I went through the motions, pretending, lying with every forced smile, with every nod. The food felt like ash in my mouth, but I swallowed it down. That night, I lay beside him in bed, stiff as a corpse, staring at the ceiling while John slept peacefully next to me. Guilt clawed at my insides, an unbearable ache that wouldn't let me breathe. I had betrayed this man, this good man who had given me nothing but love and trust. I turned onto my side, watching the way his chest rose and fell with each breath. Silent tears slipped down my cheeks. I couldn't do this. I couldn't carry this secret. John, I whispered, my voice breaking. Wake up. He stirred, groggy, blinking at me in confusion. What's wrong? Are you okay? I wasn't. I need to tell you something, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My heart was pounding so violently I thought it might stop. John sat up, his eyes full of concern. What is it? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The weight of what I was about to say crushed me, but I forced myself to continue. I made a mistake. A pause. A long, suffocating silence. His brows furrowed. Jenny, what do you mean? I inhaled sharply, my hands shaking. I slept with someone else. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. John didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. I watched the color drain from his face, watched as disbelief turned to understanding. And then, pain. He got out of bed slowly, like a man carrying a fatal wound, his hands trembling. Say that again. I cheated on you, I whispered. And the moment the words left my lips, I wished I could take them back. But it was too late. The truth was out, ugly and raw. John exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. He laughed, a short, bitter sound that cut through the air like a blade. No, you didn't. Jenny, tell me this is a joke. Tears blurred my vision as I shook my head. I'm so sorry. You're sorry. His voice cracked, his entire body tense. You're sorry? Jenny, we've been married for a year. A year? And you? He stopped himself, his hands balling into fists before he turned away from me, pacing the room. I tried to reach for him, but he flinched away. Please, John. Don't. Just don't. His voice was hoarse, as if my confession had physically hurt him. Who was it? It doesn't matter. It matters to me, he shouted, his voice shaking with rage and pain. Tell me, who was it? A man I met on the trip. It was just one night. It didn't mean anything. John let out a bitter laugh, his eyes filled with unshed tears. It didn't mean anything? It meant enough for you to throw everything we had away. I had never seen him like this. Broken. Lost. I love you, I choked out. Please let me fix this. John shook his head. You can't fix this, Jenny. You can't take this back. We can go to therapy, I pleaded. We can work through this. He stared at me for what felt like eternity, before his expression hardened. I don't think I can do this. John, please. You made your choice, he interrupted, his voice cold now. And now I have to make mine. My heart shattered as he grabbed a pillow and a blanket, walking out of the room without another word. The door shut behind him, and with it, the life we had built together came crashing down. I sat in the empty bedroom, sobbing into my hands, knowing that I had no one to blame but myself. I had destroyed the man I loved, broken his trust in the worst way possible. And no matter how much I begged, no matter how much I wished to undo it, some mistakes could never be forgiven. I don't know how long I sat there, drowning in my own grief, but when I finally stepped out of the room, John was gone. His car wasn't in the driveway. His keys were missing. I called him. No answer. I texted. No reply. Days passed, then weeks. He wouldn't see me, wouldn't talk to me. Our friends didn't know what to say, and I couldn't blame them. I was the villain in this story. One afternoon, a divorce petition arrived at my door. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a nightmare I could wake up from. I had lost him. Forever.